welcome year 10 to the first GCSE video. The aim of this really is just to recap some of the work we've done in year 10. The first task we're going to do is a mind map based on the fitness components. Now I'm going to ask you to pick 4 components and give a definition for that component, an example, and a test name for each component as well. I'm going to go over each of the components we covered just to refresh your memories, and then I'll give you some time then to complete that task. So before writing anything, I would just listen to the next couple of minutes, and then we'll outline the task in a bit more detail. So the first fitness component I'm going to talk about is reaction time, which is a performer's ability to react to a stimulus. An example of that could be a 100-metre runner reacting to the gun at the start of a 100-metre race. The test for that was the ruler drop test that you may remember we did in the small gym. Coordination then was the performer's ability to move 2 or more body parts at the same time. An example of that from sport would be any example where the performer is using 2 or more body parts at the same time. So it could be a footballer dribbling down the wing and crossing the ball on the run, for example. Test for that was the alternate hand wall throw. There's a video of that test actually on this channel if you want to take a look at that and refresh your memory back to that test. Cardiovascular endurance then was the ability of the heart, lungs and blood vessels to provide the working muscles with oxygen. An example of that may be a football player who is still pressing and closing opponents down in the last minute of a game. 2 tests we did for that were the multi-stage fitness test and the Cooper 12-minute run. Muscular endurance we covered, so the ability of a muscle or group of muscles to keep working for a long time. We did 2 tests for that, a 60-second push-up test and a 60-second sit-up test. One of those tests is also on this channel, the push-up test, if you want to take a look at that. And an example of that may be when you're doing a circuit training session and you are working the same group of muscles, for example the abdominals, doing sit-ups for 60 seconds, for example. The next component I'm going to talk about is muscular strength. Strength is the ability of muscles to exert maximal force to overcome resistance. An example of strength may be scrummaging in rugby or shot putter in athletics. The test we did for that was the 1 rep max, and we generally did that with a bench press or a squat. Speed then was the ability of the performer to get from point A to point B in the fastest possible time. The easiest example for that would be the 100 metres, and the test we did was the 30-metre sprint. Body composition then, we didn't do the test for that, but body composition was the makeup of the body. How much of the body is muscle, fat or bone? You can use skin fold calipers to test body fat, but there's also more technological ways, machines that you can use that use an electrical impulse to give you an idea of how much fat and muscle that your body is carrying. Flexibility then was the range of movements in a performer's joints. We did the sit and reach test in the hall outside the small gym, if you remember. That tested hamstring flexibility. Really easy example from gymnastics, maybe a gymnast performing the splits. Agility then, the ability of a performer to change direction quickly whilst keeping the body under control. An example of that may be a rugby player who sidesteps an opponent. The test for that was the Illinois agility test. You may need to look that one up using Bite Size, because that is, or brianmack.com, because that is quite a complex test to set up. And then there was balance, the ability of a performer to keep their centre of mass over their base of support. So that could be a gymnast holding a handstand. The test for that was the stalk stand test, if you remember. That was something you did as homework, where you had hands on hips, foot to knee, and then you were up on your toes and you timed how long you could hold that. Right, the task then. So I'm just going to move this one down a little bit. You can't see it. You can get these sheets, by the way, from Amazon, and they are really, really handy for revision, for example, and they wipe clean as well. Anyway, so with the fitness components, I said a minimum of 4, okay? A minimum of 4 components I want you to cover. Now you're going to do the mind map twice, okay? And the reason for that is we're going to really try and work on storing the information in the long-term memory by chunking and giving you sort of a more concise revision tool at the end of it, or revision technique really. So you'll have fitness components in the middle, and then off fitness components you have a minimum of 4 components. With those components I want a definition, an example from sport, and a test name. Those of you who are really keen might even write the test procedures, but I'll leave that up to you. Okay, so the first draft, one of my 4 that I've picked is cardiovascular endurance. So my definition in full is the ability of the heart, lungs and blood vessels to provide oxygen to the working muscles. My example then was a football player who can continue to press in the final minutes of a game, and my test was a multi-stage fitness test. Okay, so that's quite a lot for our brain to store. But obviously we've got a lot of content to cover. So one strategy we're going to use is we can chunk the information, we can break it down. So once I've done my first mind map and I've got my 4 components written out like that, I'm going to take a second piece of paper and I'm going to do a chunked version of the first draft. I've talked about this before, using pictures, words, symbols to try and break down the amount of information that your brain has to link up and store. So my chunked version then, that would be my first version, my chunked version then, I've simply got a picture of a heart, picture of the lungs, picture of blood vessels, and the symbol for oxygen. And because they're the key areas of the definition, over time in my revision I'm hoping that that is going to be enough for me to revise from. An example then, I've put a football, the word press and the word 90 minutes, which hopefully sparks my long-term memory off. Right, my example for cardiovascular fitness, if asked, is related to football. I'm talking about the 90th minute of the game. I'm talking about the performer still being able to press. And then the test then, I've just written MSFT, multi-stage fitness test. So that's just quite a useful revision technique, and in some of the videos that we do, that's the sort of techniques we're going to be using to try and transfer this information that is quite heavy into your long-term memory. But it's got to be done in steps. So we start with quite a lot, and as we go through the course we break it down as our long-term memory starts to store the information that we rehearse. Okay, good luck.